All right. So I am going ahead and starting the recording, and we'll get started. So I'm really excited that all of you are here. As I said earlier, there's going to be time for questions, but please feel free to pause me and ask anything that you're wondering about or put it in the chat if you feel more comfortable. So, for those of you who don't know me, I am Joanna Robertson, the founder of Mindfully Caffeinated. I am a therapist and a meditation teacher, and also coffee lover, cat mom, and aspiring grower of plants. So I have featured one of them in this picture so that you believe me. I'll talk about this a little bit later on in the webinar, but I'll be hosting a self-compassion workshop in November. So I wanted you to know about that. And I think it's a really good counter to the conversation we're going to have today, because often when we start talking about our purchasing and ethics and consumption, it can bring up feelings of guilt or feelings of anxiety. And so I think it helps to balance that with mindfulness and with self-compassion. And so speaking of mindfulness, I want us to start with a few moments of mindful breathing, just to anchor ourselves into the practice and really be present as we move into the conversation. So if you will, go ahead and adjust however you need to be comfortable. You can close your eyes if that feels good, or just have a gentle gaze. The goal of that is just to minimize distractions and let your attention start to move into the present moment. So let your belly be soft. Relax any tension that might be in the shoulders or neck. Take another moment to check in with the body. And then as you're ready, bring your attention to rest on the breath. Perhaps breathing in through the nose and out through the mouth. We're just going to be here for a moment or two. So really savor these slow, full, deep breaths. And if you notice your mind wandering, just notice where it's gone, and then bring it back to rest on the breath for 3 more full, deep breaths. And 2 more. And 1 more. And take a second to stretch if you'd like. And then when you're ready, you can open your eyes. Okay. So thank you for joining me in that. I always think that it helps me to kind of let go of anything that I was holding onto, and it just helps me to feel more relaxed. So, this is our agenda for today. I'm going to talk about what fair trade is, why it matters. I'm going to give you two specific examples, coffee and chocolate. And then I'll talk about where you can buy it, what you can buy, some of my favorites. And then we'll end with a conversation about how it connects to mindfulness and then answer any questions. Um, this first one, when I send this out, is a link to a really great TED talk about fair trade. So I encourage you to go and give that a listen. All right. So fair trade is a trading partnership based on dialogue, transparency, and respect. It seeks to that seeks greater equity in international trade. So it combines sustainable development by offering better trading conditions to and securing the rights of marginalized producers and workers. So this is from the World Trade Organization. So you might be saying, okay, great, but what does that mean? So fair trade is an organization that helps to set standards, economic, social, environmental, and more for the production of a variety of products. So it provides third party certifiers to ensure that standards are being met. So often, what happens in production is that there are many pieces of the production line. So there's the farm where the products might be harvested, and then it goes through like various middlemen to places where it might be like for coffee beans, it has to be shipped and roasted and then sold to companies and then ends up on the shelf. So throughout this process, there are many opportunities for injustice to occur in the process. So, people not to be paid well, for forced labor to occur, things like that. So, one of the things that the Fair Trade Organization does is it provides certifiers who set the standards that farmers agree to. Um, and then also provides a way to check in to make sure those standards are being met and that people are being paid fair wages. So, again, farmers and workers are often not paid a fair wage for their work, and it's not something that is sustainable or livable for them. So, fair trade provides um, a set amount that can be consistent and also ensures that farmers have enough so that it can help them come out of poverty and have a sustainable business. So, another cool thing to know about fair trade is that many of the products are certified organic, and that if they are, farmers are actually paid a bonus for that. And there are premiums that the co-ops of farmers receive when they sell these products, and then the community gets to vote on how they use that premium. So I'm going to show you guys a video later on that gives several examples of how different farming co-ops decided to use their premiums. So I want to talk about why all this matters. It matters because, like I said, often the people who do the really hard work of making sure we get these products aren't paid well, if they're paid at all. And so this can lead to cycles of poverty that farmers and their families aren't able to get out of because um, they can't break that cycle of poverty because they're not being paid fairly. Particularly in the chocolate industry, there is a lot of forced child labor and slave labor that is used. Um, this is something that, if you want to go and research more, is a really complicated process and a lot of times hard to kind of get your hands on and understand what's happening. But often children, either on their family farms or kind of taken from other places, are used as the main labor force for harvesting the cocoa pods. And these are kids that are young, and it prevents them from going to school. And also because they're not paid, it doesn't help them to bring themselves or their families out of poverty. But fair trade seeks to eliminate child labor in its production line. And it also works to bring families out of poverty, which helps to also mitigate the child labor. Fair trade also forms more direct relationships with farmers. And so by cutting out some of the middlemen in the process, they can pay more. And for you, the consumer, even if perhaps you didn't care about all of these other things, which I know you do because you're here, but these products are delicious. They support sustainability and they're ethical. So we'll start, not surprisingly, with one of my favorite fair trade products, coffee. So coffee was actually the first fair trade certified product. And one thing that's interesting about coffee is that um, the prices change a lot. So farmers can't expect a certain price for their crop. It's not going to stay the same from year to year, season to season. It's also a fairly vulnerable crop. And so this is really challenging for farmers. So one thing that fair trade does is that it sets a minimum that they'll get. And if the market value is higher, they'll still receive the higher market value, but there is a minimum that they know they won't go under. And to help you get an idea of the difference between the two, if you were to go to a coffee shop that isn't selling fair trade coffee, the farmer would receive about 3 cents for every $3 cup of coffee. With a fair trade cup of coffee, it's about 15 cents or 5 times more. And then another thing that I already said, farmers get to use these premiums to invest into their communities. Before I go on to chocolate, are there any questions? You're welcome to unmute yourself or put it into the chat. Okay. All right. So chocolate, like I said, that child labor is frequently used. One of the more frustrating things about this is that many large companies, such as Hershey and Nestle, have pledged many times to ensure that child labor was not used in their chocolate production, but they have failed to meet their deadline over and over and over. And so, particularly in the US, there's a very good chance that chocolate you buy that isn't fair trade certified has been produced using child labor. An example of how you can tell that the market is really determined by consumer demand. In Europe, a lot of the Nestle chocolate is certified fair trade because the market demanded it. And so we know that it's really possible for these companies to do better, and they haven't. So again, this gets complicated because fair trade is a really, really good step or steps in the right direction. However, it can't guarantee that there isn't child labor, primarily because they provide checks on farms. So they'll go and they'll talk to the workers, they'll talk to the farmers, they'll go to the places, but there's always a chance that children are being like hidden during those checks or something like that. But one thing that you can know about buying fair trade chocolate is that they're seeking to end child labor and they help to alleviate poverty, which is one of the biggest drivers of using a child labor market. So I've linked a an article here whenever I send out the PowerPoint that you're welcome to read more if you really want to go more in depth about kind of the complications in this industry, specifically about chocolate. Okay, so there's a question about how can we demand not using child labor besides only buying fair trade? Yeah, that's a good question. So there have been throughout the years various campaigns to companies like Hershey and Nestle to push them to buy from fair trade farms. So you can always write to companies and tell them that this is what you want. You can look for big campaigns. They often happen around holidays. So this is a really good time because we're coming up on Halloween when a lot of chocolate is purchased. So you can ask the companies and tell them your concern. You can also buy from fair trade companies and then talk to other people about it. So if you're going to hand out Halloween candy and you buy a bunch of mini fair trade chocolates, you could then post about that and let people know. Because the more people that are aware and are asking for something, the more likely companies will answer. And if I see other like campaigns or opportunities, I will certainly send them out to anyone that's interested. Okay. So one question I got before this talk was, how do I know that something is fair trade? And thankfully, this is an easy answer because you look for the label. So depending on if it's fair trade USA, fair trade international, the labels look a little bit different, but you can look for one of these on the products that you buy, and you can know that it's a certified fair trade item. One thing I've found is that companies typically want you to know if they're making efforts to have more ethical trade practices. And so they'll tell you. So typically, they're not going to try to hide the fact that they're fair trade. So you can look for the label. Okay, so this is the video that I wanted to share with you about how different farmers have used their premiums. So now the greatest test of empathy.
¿Por qué abandonarlos si de ahí está el amor? Está todo.
Para sa akin po, kapag po ako ay pumapasok, nung una-una po,
ang mga bata po ay napakarami ang mga severely listed. Pag po pumapasok sila ay pagpugutom, siyempre po wala pong laman ang tiyan. Ay di lang wala rin po napasok sa utak. Napakarami pong school ang nabigyan po ng proyektong ito ng fair trade. Dito po sila natuto, yung mga magulang, na ganoon pala ang dapat nagawin, hindi lang po sa school, at pati sa kanilang tahanan.
It's a big help for us. Kung sila nga ay nakakain, sila ay active, sila ay malakas, they are paying attention,
Yan pong mga malnourished na yan ay talaga pong tataba na at meron na po tayong feeding program ngayon.
In Indian society, the gas stove is something which is used every day, and there is a need of like replacing it every 5 years or every 2 years.
ಗ್ಯಾಸ್ ಒಬ್ಬೊಬ್ರ ಮನೇಲಿ ಗ್ಯಾಸ್ ಎಲ್ಲ ಹಾಳಾಗಿದೆ, ತುಂಬಾ ಸಣ್ಣ ಗುರಿಯೋದು ಎಲ್ಲ, ಅದರಿಂದ ಬೇಗ ಅಡುಗೆನೂ ಆಗಲ್ಲ.
But workers might not have that much extra money to spend on like replacing their gas stoves.
ಸೊ ನಿನ್ನೆ ಎಲೆಕ್ಷನ್ ಹೆಚ್ಚಿನ ಮತ ಗ್ಯಾಸ್ಗೆನೆ ಬಂದಿತ್ತು, ಗ್ಯಾಸ್ಗೆನೆ ನಾವೆಲ್ಲ ವೋಟ್ ಮಾಡಿದ್ವಿ. ಇವಾಗ ಇದು ಕೊಡೋದು ಬೇಗ ಅಡುಗೆ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಬೇಗನೂ ಟೈಮ್ ಸೇವ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ, ಬರೋಕ್ಕೂ ಅನುಕೂಲ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ.
And it's not only benefiting them but also benefiting the family.
Una de las que me he beneficiado ha sido en lo médico, mi pequeña y toda mi familia, lo odontológico. Y especialmente con Fairtrade. Sale mucho futuro para nosotros.
Do you want to be happy? Do you want to fulfill some desires of yours which is close to your heart? Same goes to the workers who make your products, who are doing farming of the vegetables and fruits you are eating every day. In the entire fair trade process, the power which consumer have is the most important one, because if they won't buy the product which is fair trade certified, there won't be products which will be produced as fair trade certified products.
Sir and ma'am, ito po ang dapat ninyong bilhin.
Okay. So I really like this video. I know that I can, that I can tell you all the things that were said in the video, but I think it's so much more impactful to hear it in this way and to see examples of places where the products that we love and that we use are made. So what can you buy that is certified fair trade? And excitingly, this is really growing. So you can buy coffee, tea, chocolate, sugar, clothes, fruit, flowers. There's home goods, coconut, and more. So one of the things I'll be sending out to you is a link to the Fair Trade Certified website. And you can go through there and discover all kinds of products and companies that are selling fair trade products. I was exploring on there this week, and actually that's how I found out that Target now has a couple of pairs of jeans that are fair trade certified. So it's not the whole clothing line, but it is a couple. And so I went and bought some because I want them to keep that up and to do more. So where can you buy it? These are just some. I don't know all the regional grocery stores, but this was a good list. And this is another thing I'm really excited about, because when I first learned about fair trade or got more involved around 2008, I was living in West Texas, and it was really, really difficult to find fair trade products in the store. Typically, I could find one chocolate bar at HEB, and I could find coffee at the natural natural food store. Everything else I had to order if I wanted it. Now I can find, like if I go shopping at Kroger, I can buy coconut, sugar, chocolate, coffee, cocoa powder, chocolate chips, tea, all of that that is fair trade certified. So things have moved a lot in the right direction. And I hope and think that a lot of that has to do with people's awareness and their buying of these products. And that's good for these companies who want us to spend money. Does anybody shop at a grocery store mainly that isn't on this list? Because if so, you can tell me and I'll look into their products and let you know. Oh, we have one. Ah, Safeway. Okay. I'm going to look into Safeway. Awesome. Anybody else? Okay. You can always, I don't know, I find this fun. You may not find this fun, is to just like when I'm grocery shopping or like ordering online to just do a search for fair trade and then just see what's available or go around more during non-COVID times to look for what products I can find. Trader Joe's. So Trader Joe's has a few fair trade items. I didn't put it on here mainly because there just isn't that much. So there's a couple, there's one of their coffees that I do like to buy because it's really good. That's fair trade. And I think a couple times you can find certain chocolates, like certain chocolate bars. But I think it's definitely something that I might look into trying to contact them and asking for more because it does seem like they could do a better job. Okay, so I just thought I would share some of my favorite fair trade products in case you haven't bought many before and you want a place to start. So you can, okay, so I love Divine chocolate and also Theo chocolate. They are both delicious and have all kinds of interesting flavors. Equal Exchange is a great company. They sell cocoa powder. They also sell lots of chocolate, different teas. For ice cream lovers, Ben & Jerry's, most of their ice cream is fair trade certified, or at least the ingredients that can be fair trade certified within them are certified. Simple Truth is one brand I've been buying a lot of. It's Kroger's brand actually, and not every Simple Truth item is fair trade, but they have a ton of fair trade items. So that's a good thing to look for if you shop at Kroger. This brand of soap is fair trade and natural. And then a less known one is Gobena Coffee. They actually, you can order it through Amazon or directly from their website. And not only are many of their coffees fair trade, but they also support different orphanages and they support those children. So there's another question about how to know if a local tea company is fair trade. So what I would say is if you if they don't say that they're fair trade, then I would ask. So oftentimes companies may not pay for the certification process of fair trade, but they might be doing other work to ensure safe and fair labor practices. So an example of that is direct trade. So direct trade, you can also have, it's often marked on products, but that's where a company has developed a relationship with a farm and they pay them directly. So again, cutting out a lot of the middle people in that process. So I would ask. I would email them, call them, try to talk to somebody who is part of the purchasing and just ask them where they source their tea. Most places, again, like if they're mindful and if that's a careful decision, they want to talk about it because um, it's a belief that is important to them, especially if we're talking like local business. And so they'll probably be excited to talk about it. Uh, I have kind of created my own kind of hierarchy of where I'll go. So I try to buy fair trade products or direct trade products. And then if I'm like picking up coffee and there maybe isn't a fair trade coffee shop, then I try to support local. Um, and then, so those are kind of the things like buy it from my house that's fair trade, support local businesses. When I can do both, then it's a win-win. And I'm lucky because there's several of those in Houston. And so I have no shortage of coffee and chocolate options. You can also just take some time to read labels. Again, people like to know that companies like to know that people are aware of their ethics and of their products. If you want to do a little more work, you can always research. That's especially helpful for things like chocolate companies. So to understand some of the history and what they have done and what they haven't done. And then, of course, when in doubt, ask. Okay. And there's a comment that Costco's Kirkland Signature House Blend is fair trade. So that's awesome to know because at Costco, you can also buy in bulk. And it's roasted by Starbucks. Okay. So, all right. Starbucks is interesting. I'm going to take a quick detour on Starbucks and then we'll come back. Starbucks has some fair trade coffee, but not most of it. So most of the time, what you drink when you go to Starbucks is not fair trade, even though they have certain coffees that are fair trade. So again, I think this is an example of if there was enough consumer demand for fair trade products that potentially Starbucks could do more. In my opinion, they certainly have the financial means to do so. It may just be that there isn't enough interest for them to switch to having more, if not all, of their coffee being fair trade certified. So I wanted to highlight this quote that was in the video clip we watched. Individually, we make a choice, and together we make a difference. You can often feel when you start switching your purchases to fair trade products that it doesn't really do very much. But I think it's important to remember that collectively we make a big difference in the lives of the people who produce these products, and we make a big statement to companies about what their consumers value. And so this is a time when it's important to reflect on what are your values and do my purchasing choices reflect that? So before I switch over to kind of talking about mindfulness and how I connect that to fair trade, are there any questions? I've loved how you guys have been putting them in the chat. That's perfect. That lets me know you're still with me. All right. Okay, so Renee's just saying that the tea place said that they do fair trade when they can. Okay. Yeah, so that's a good sign that they're aware of it, and that they're starting to purchase. And it could be a starting place to learn more about how they make those choices and maybe where some of the gaps are. And then, okay, yeah, and there's a question just about chocolate suggestions. Yes, I'm going to go back to that slide. Okay, so divine chocolate is delicious. You can buy this at most grocery stores. Theo chocolate is a little harder to find, but it's delicious if you can. Most of Green and Black's chocolate is fair trade certified. There's really a lot of different companies. I just put a couple on here. And then the chocolate in Ben and Jerry's ice cream is also fair trade. So it's always a fun, like, extra justification if you really want ice cream. You're like, oh, it's fair trade. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, so a comment, seeing the faces of the people on the video will stay with me when I shop. It has been more about a money choice, and that made it more of a human choice. Yeah, and it's really easy to kind of slip back into like, well, this costs more money, so why would I do that? But remembering those faces and knowing that choosing that is giving hope and a better future for me, like it really connects when I think about kids and what I want for them. So I struggle with this a lot when it comes to like my choices and my purchases and my ethics. And it took a lot of years for me to settle into a sense of more ease when it came to learning and choosing. And one of the things that's really helped that process is my mindfulness practices. My favorite definition of mindfulness is one that one of my teachers uses, which is mindfulness is paying attention moment by moment with kindness and curiosity, and then choosing your behavior. So when I think about this, I think about being fully present, being aware, and then thinking, what is my next step? So if I'm thinking about my purchasing decisions, when I'm present, I can think more clearly about what matters to me, what I want to reflect in terms of my values, my morals, and then how that translates to what I buy. It also connects me more to gratitude and to compassion and empathy for other people, because I'm able to be more present with them and to sit more fully with their experience. So sometimes when I'm caught up in anxiety or I'm caught up in stress, I'm not able to connect to the pain of other people, and I want to shut it out and focus on something else. But when I am grounded in the present moment and still within myself, I can sit with that in a different kind of way. And then I want to do right by other people because I don't want my purchases or the things that I like to cause harm. And it also can help me to slow down the process of purchasing and to just to be more mindful and thoughtful about it. I'm certainly still very imperfect in this whole process. One of the things in particular I'm trying to work on is my wardrobe. Um, so buying more fair trade clothes, more secondhand, things like that. I'm really excited that this has moved in. There's a lot more products available now. When I looked years ago, I just couldn't find a lot either that I liked or that was affordable. But now there's a lot of fun companies that are making fair trade clothes, that are working and have these incredible partnerships with different uh, companies to produce really beautiful purchases. So that is part of my next steps of my journey. So there's always room for growth. And one thing I tell other people and then have to remind myself is that, you do the best with the information that you have. And then when you learn more, then you do better with that new information. Okay. Yeah, so questions about clothing companies. So, again, I'll really encourage you to look at the link on the Fairtrade certified website for clothing. Um, Off the top of my head, I know so Target has like a few pairs of jeans. Madewell has a Fairtrade line of denim. Um, oh, I just bought a shirt from a company that Renee recommended. Maybe Renee, you can put that in the chat. Um, Prana, yes, they have some beautiful top. I just bought a top from them, and there's more. So again, I'll definitely link that when I send out the summary email, to look for more products. And one thing I think about is that for myself is that the buying fair trade clothes is more expensive because it, it makes sure that the factory workers are paid fairly. And so for me, I'm going to have to do it really piece by piece until I'm able to kind of do a fair trade workover of my wardrobe. But until then, I'm going to also be really aware of anything new that I buy and where it comes from and can I buy it secondhand. So taking small steps to get where I want to go. So, what additional questions do you all have? Or if you have favorite fair trade products that you buy or companies that you love, also share those in chat so that others can know. And I'm going to take notes to make sure I mention them in the follow-up email. Yeah, so tips for grocery shopping online. So actually, I've found a lot of products that are fair trade by shopping online. So I would say, like, when you're making your grocery list, just start by searching for fair trade and see what products they have. And then if you start to notice certain brands that have a lot of them, then search for that brand and see if there's any additional products that got lost in the filter. So yeah, like Simple Truth from Kroger um, is a good one to start with, or other. I know there's other grocery stores that are under that same, that aren't Kroger but are under the same um, company. So yeah, I would just do that. So just search for it, give yourself a little bit of time, and then yeah, see what you find. It's actually how I found like fair trade coconut flour and a couple other things, which was really fun. Yes. Yeah, and I don't know. I think because I paid attention to this for a while, but I still get really excited every time I find an item that is fair trade when I'm grocery shopping. All right, and Rebecca is sharing Community Cloth is fair trade. It's local in Houston, and they have beautiful accessories and gifts. Yes, that's awesome. Yeah, if you are local in Houston, also at a Second Cup, which is a fair trade nonprofit coffee shop, they also have a lot of different products in their store because they're not having any in-person dining inside. So they've got a lot of really beautiful gifts and jewelry and a couple of shirts, some baby stuff, things like that. So if you are local, it's great. And they also have an online store, which is linked on my website. But I didn't know about Community Cloth, so I am adding that. See, this is why I love getting thoughtful people together because we learn so much, we learn from each other, and we leave with awesome new ideas. Okay, so just as a reminder, the I'll be offering another webinar in November on self-compassion. And this can be a good balance for you, especially if you're prone to feeling guilty or anxiety when learning new information or trying to make a change in your life. I think that the tenets of self compassion really help to ground us and to promote growth, even when there are setbacks or challenges. All right. So I'm going to stop the recording